Hey, everybody. Greg Pruitt here, Freedom Bro #1. I am joined by my co host, Dustin Hurst, Freedom Bro #2. This is episode 13 of the Freedom Bros podcast. And before we get too deep into it, be sure to give us some love, give us a thumbs up wherever you are watching. Drop a comment in this wherever you're watching as well. We totally blew it last time, by the way, not
Yes, we
checking the
did.
comments. So that was our fault. I apologize about that. And then we also, by the way, are now on Rumble. That is probably the safest place for you to watch if you're going to rewatch this, not live, because it will be unfiltered, no editing, anything like that. If we get banned off of YouTube, which we probably will at some point,
Probably will. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're
will.
heading there. Yeah.
So that's where you're going to be able to catch us, and we'd love to have you guys there. So with that, before we get too deep into it, let's roll our awesome over the top stinger.
Let's go.
All right, Dustin, how you feeling tonight, man?
So I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'll tell you before we get to our guest tonight, Rob Beiswenger, who is challenging Matt Bundy for a House seat in District 8. Let's talk shop. Like the other hobby that we have besides politics and beating up on liberals is music. Greg and I share some musical tastes, and we're going to be in Salt Lake City tomorrow, which might actually be Greg Graff's home state. We don't know at this point. I'm going to stop by. Maybe I'll stop by and take him an In-N-Out burger if he's around. But we're going to NF in Salt Lake City tomorrow. I am stoked. I went in San Francisco on Sunday night. Don't tell my bishop, but I went. And oh, my goodness, it was lit. It was. Are you excited? Are you so excited, Greg?
I am, and a lot of people probably don't know who NF is, but I think with the new album he had, I was a little. There's not a lot of hype songs on the new album, so to speak, and so I kind of was worried about how it was going to be, and then you showed me the what do you call it, the playlist or the discography or whatever, the set list. There you go, the set list. And he's obviously got some of his older, more hype songs in there. So, and the videos and pictures I've seen of around the country are just a crazy time. So
I'm curious because I went with my brother in San Francisco. He's the type of guy like he wants to be surprised. And so he didn't know the set list. He hadn't watched any of the videos on YouTube because the whole concert's there. Have you watched any of the concert other than what I've shown you?
No, other than the 2-minute video that you showed me, I haven't watched any of it. So I just seen pictures randomly.
We have 3 seats tomorrow. I'm going to put the guy that I'm bringing down, my other buddy, between us so I don't tell you things as they come up. Like, because I have a habit, like, hey, this is going to happen. Like, it's so good. You're going to love it. Yeah. And, of course, we're going to stop at In-N-Out beforehand and get some fat cheeseburger going on.
Definitely must. It'll be exciting.
The other thing we were going to do, I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow morning. Soon, hopefully tomorrow morning, Tom McDonald is releasing a new song with Adam Calhoun. It's patriotic. I don't remember what it's called, but it is America themed. Do you remember what it's called?
Your America? Was that what it was?
I think. Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
He again promised to offend liberals. So we're going to see if we can do a reaction video real quick tomorrow morning or maybe sometime this weekend because it's fun. It's just fun to do those. And we'll see. So
yeah. That'll be good. And for those that don't know, we reacted to a Tom McDonald song last week.
Yeah,
American Flags, and which you should go listen to. It's a good song. It's a really good song.
One last thing, I know Rob is waiting to talk. Like any good politician, he's waiting to talk, and he has plenty to say, especially because he's going up against Matt Bundy. But Greg, talk for a second about what you're doing with your gun rallies. I know you've been across the state already doing stuff. Let people know what they need to know about that.
Yeah, so we've got another one coming up in Pocatello. My organization, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, we are traveling the state, 22 total cities in total, however you want to say it. And we've done 2 already in St. Anthony and Rigby, really, really far away from where I live. And so it'll be in Pocatello next week. And then just between Christy Zitto and I, just talking to as many gun owners as we can across the state about what's happening with the 2A. So you can go to idahogunrallies.com and learn more about what we're doing.
I was in Milwaukee this week for meetings, and I talked about the podcast and what we do. And people ask about this, and they said, "You really need to defend gun rights in Idaho." I'm like, "Yeah, you really do." I mean, as you know, we're a red state, sort of, but we still have a lot of work to do, especially with the Supreme Court ruling. And if you want to, we did an excellent podcast on that. I think it was episode 8 or 9 with Scott Herning. Go listen to that one. Because it was a really good explainer about one thing that we really need to clean up in the next session. So without further ado, there was, do you mind if I do the intro real quick?
Go ahead.
Greg?
Yeah,
okay.
You're fine.
There was a really important bill that passed the Idaho legislature and was signed into law last session, House Bill 71. It was the bill, we call it the Chloe Cole bill. We don't do official names here in Idaho, but we call it the Chloe Cole bill because it prevented young men and young women from chopping off their body parts because they believe they are the opposite gender. Now, in the Senate, there were like 4 or 5 Republicans who voted against it. Treg Burnt, Julie Van Orden, Linda Hartkin. There may have been one more. I don't remember. Terrible people, just terrible people. In the House, there was Schroeder. We talked about this last week. Jeff Schroeder from District 8, who weirdly enough shares a district with Matt Bundy. There was one Republican in the House, one who voted against this bill. Matt Bundy from District 8. Now, keep in mind, this is not one of the Bundys who care about freedom. Not at all. Like, I thought that when I first heard his name, of course, because I'm an idiot. But Matt Bundy is the worst. He is terrible. He voted to protect transgender surgeries for Idaho youth. Rob Beiswenger is challenging Matt Bundy for his seat in the 2024 primary. He declared his candidacy last week. Let's welcome Rob onto the show. Rob, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing great. I am a morning person, but I do appreciate the invite. And, thank you for that, and thanks for your time and what you're doing here.
Yeah, sorry. Greg and I are both night people.
Yes,
we regularly text at like 2 a.m, just talking about politics and stuff. So maybe that's morning. Maybe we should have done it then.
Yeah, there you go.
Give me about 5.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, maybe next time. Rob, tell us. Let's start with the softball questions. Tell us who you are, where you're from, why you're running.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I mean, I live in Horseshoe Bend, so I'm in Boise County. District 8 referring to. It's got 4 counties. Elmore County, which is Mountain Home, is the largest population-wise, the county. You've got, Boise County, which is Horseshoe Bend, Idaho City, some other small towns in there. Then you've got Valley County, which goes all up in Cascade and McCall and all up 55 there. Then somewhere out there over the rainbow is Custer County, allegedly is out there. So we've got Chalice, which is where Dorothy Moon is from. So it's a very rural county, but a lot of it kind of just surrounds Ada County in Boise and Meridian. So I've had a few different careers. You want me to take a spin of that real quick? I currently work at Money Metals Exchange. That's down in Eagle. We're a homegrown business out here. I'm a specialist. I'm on the sales staff, and we sell gold and silver. I say we take your fake money, your dollars, and convert it into real money. So we give you, we turn out silver and gold, which I think is a pretty good deal, especially these days. You've had the 3 largest bank failures in American history in the same month this year. It's really no joke, and that, of course, set off a firestorm again here. I mean, we had the war in Ukraine started last March. You had the bank failures this March. You had COVID started out in March too. So I don't know what happens in March if the moon's changing its orbit or something that month. I'm not quite sure how that works. But every first week in March, 5 years in a row, we have a major worldwide event. So anyway, long story short, I work there. I've been there for about 2 years. The company's very pro freedom and interested politically in helping good candidates, and they put a bug in my ear. I first started there to run. I totally blew it off. I was really just like, I got enough on my plate. Like, you got to be kidding me. I really had zero interest in running for office, at all. Now, I moved to Idaho in 2019. And then before that, I lived in Indianapolis. And my wife and I had started working a business, working with kids with autism. Now, I didn't, so we're doing behavior therapy, potty training, socialization, helping kids get in schools, connecting with their parents and their siblings and all that. Now, I just handle business side of it, insurance contracts, payroll, health insurance, things like that. I didn't do any therapy.
Yeah.
Our therapy was done to me, which was probably for the best. But anyways, that business still runs in Indianapolis, has about 50 employees. It's called Collaborative Behavior Solutions. It's really my wife's, her dream to have that, and I got to help her do that for a while, and it's still running out there. It does really tremendous work. And the thing that makes it different from everybody else pretty much out there is in home. We go into people's homes, into their schools directly. We're not bringing them into a center. We have a lot more parental involvement than other places, and might give you some insights as how we like to run our family here too.
So what brought you to, I mean, so we're used to the political refugees from like California, Oregon, and Washington, but then I hear Indiana, I'm like, no, that's not really the same thing. So, I mean, what brought you to Idaho of all places?
Yeah, well, I mean, Indiana was a Union Rust Belt state, until I kind of got there, and then when I started. So take one more step back. My first career, so I've had three, I guess, at this point now. Is I ran the Indiana Right to Work Committee. Now, Right to Work law, for someone who might not know, means that you can join a union if you want to, but you cannot be required as a condition of employment to pay union dues. That's all it says. I mean, the right to join a union is protected in all 50 states. You have Right to Work laws now in 27 states. Indiana was 23. You had Idaho in 1986 passed it with Charlton Heston and Gary Glenn, who just passed away recently. They led that fight there in Idaho. Then not till Oklahoma passed in 2001 was the next state to pass it. And then Indiana was the next one in 2012, which then had Michigan, Wisconsin, Kentucky, West Virginia all passed them on the backs of that. So when I got there in 2004, though, the House in Indiana was 51-49 to the Democrats. And the Democrats had a Democrat governor there. And not till the 2004 election, you had Mitch Daniels come in and win the governorship. The Republicans took a 52-48 majority in the House. And the Senate actually was 2-1 Republican. But kind of like we see here in Idaho, there were different kinds of Republican factions within that caucus, as you find out here. And I found out, quite frankly, too. And I would have taken for granted, Idaho was really a conservative state. Now, after the 2010 elections, the Obama midterm election, we just wiped out the Democrats across the state. We've been really working them, but the 06 and 08 elections, of course, were really bad for Republicans. So the House went back to being Democrats. So even the Democrats held out there by being pro-life and pro-gun, in southern Indiana, the Kentucky side of that border there. They hung out there for a while.
Sounds familiar.
Until 2010, when they filibustered the Right to Work bill, and they actually, if you remember, Scott Walker was fighting Wisconsin on the right to work issues kind of up there. Well, the Democrats from Wisconsin and Indiana both went to Illinois to prevent quorum to have that vote not be allowed to happen in both there. Well, the Democrats got to completely obliterate the next election. The Republicans went from having like 48 seats, 59 and stuff like that. Now I think the Republican majority is like 70-30 or 69-31, something like that. The Senate is 40-10 Republican, and the Democratic Party was essentially wiped out because of their opposition, in part due to Right to Work. And so that's what I did there. So Indiana had a lot of improvement, I guess all I'm saying, the time we were there, it was definitely a lot of good things happening.
Yeah.
Now, why we moved to Idaho? It's a great question. I mean, we had we were running our business there, and my wife was pregnant with we have two daughters right now. They're just about 13 and 10. And the daughter she was born, and she ended up being a stillbirth. And we didn't know at the time. It kind of took us, by a loss, and it was kind of we were demoralized and hurt and all that. And we'd already had our company set up with other people running it. So we thought, well, do we really need to jump back in there? Maybe we just need some family time to kind of regroup. And so a little while after that, we took an RV trip, and we traveled around the country looking for other spots. We might even want to live out west temporarily. We just kind of thought, well, it's a good time to do it before we go back to work and all that. And found some friends out here, and we thought, I passed through Boise a couple of times, over the years, traveling on I had a part of my job with Right to Work's fundraising, and also fundraising, for there's different Right to Work, the national group and regional groups and all that. So I've been through town a couple times, and all I just thought was nice. And we got out here like, I think we could try this out. I wasn't really on the list. Kind of thought, well, maybe Colorado or even Montana. I lived out in Montana for a little bit, a long time ago, for I don't know, 8 months or so. And then just kind of got out here and said, yeah, let's do it. So we moved out here. This was pre, apocalypse, with the COVID stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then you got out here and the homeschooling. We're a big homeschooling family. That's something we were doing then.
Okay.
Now my oldest daughter, she was probably 4 years old. And we started getting her just in these repetition, classical songs to get memorization stuff. And So my wife and I were doing that stuff with them. So Idaho's very, nice homeschool laws if you're looking for freedom on that. And that was a critical barrier for us. Like Kansas, for example, has, very strong regulations on homeschool. You got to be checked in on every month. You got to submit these reports and get permission and all this stuff. You think, well, Kansas seems like that'd be okay, right? But it wasn't at all.
Okay,
so
hang on though. I'm hang on one second. I'm sorry. I just have a question. You ended up in Horseshoe Bend though. Like that's like choosing Caldwell to live. Like, why'd you end up in Horseshoe Bend? What's the draw there? And by the way, I'll insult my own city later. I live in the People's Republic of Boise. Like it's the worst too. So like I'm not saying like everybody should live in Coeur d'Alene, but like Horseshoe Bend.
Well, we rented a house first when we got here for a year, and we were not in Horseshoe Bend. We were in it's called Hidden Springs, which is a few miles north of Garden City in Boise. And up there, we just rented a house because we didn't know where we wanted to go. We'd been out here, we kind of been up and down State Street and spin around a little bit, and Eagle and Meridian, and just kind of like, I don't know, where do we want to be? That was kind of an interesting question. So we thought, well, we'll rent a little bit for putting some roots down. And then, the COVID hit. My wife was visiting her family, and we just kind of started scouting out houses. And we found this house that I'm in right now here in Horseshoe Bend. It's up on a hill, so I can overlook Horseshoe Bend. And there's a neighborhood here of about 21 houses. And it just felt like this was a good spot to be. And it was kind of a little bit away from town. And, obviously coming to Idaho, you kind of thought it was nice to have a little bit of property. You got 2 kids. We had goats and chickens and a horse at different times. And Indianapolis, even though we were still in the city limits, but had some property with 5 acres, and so we kind of stumbled on it, to be honest, and we got where the house prices really jacked up, so we somewhat affordable, even though I wouldn't say it's cheap, but yeah.
So this is your second run for office. Why are you running? I'm very curious because people hate politics. Politics is not easy. It's not fun. It takes a toll on your family. Why are you running for public office?
That's a good question. A few things happened, I guess, to do it. Of course, I have been, a right toward field guy for years, and I led the Indiana group and did other fundraising things. So I have some skills. People always knew, like, well, you've got some business experience, you got some political experience, like, I can. I'm pretty good at predicting things that will happen politically as you start to understand how these things work, and there's patterns involved, and there's certain behavior, certain people, they'll try this first and that, and be like, well, you should run. And I'm like, but being also like, when you're working politics, you're like, there's a certain person who can be, elected, and there's certain people who are good, but kind of behind the scenes. And I always kind of felt I was more a behind the scenes guy. And that's just what I, kind of gravitated towards. So people always encouraged me to kind of run and things like that. But I kind of just dismissed it. It was just kind of like, we have a business going. It was just like, just not good time for family or things like that, or nothing kind of caught my urgency. When in Indiana, in my state and House and Senate district, I had a pretty good state rep and pretty good state senator. They didn't really frustrate me too much. And so I'm not going to bother running against somebody who's already going to vote the way I'm going to, 90% of the time anyway. So I got here. And then, so we got here in Horseshoe Bend in, say, the fall, like August of about 2020, I believe, somewhere in there. And a friend here came by, and she was talking. She said, hey, can I tell you something that went on in the Horseshoe Bend school district? At the school itself. And just, we were a town of 1,000 people. Kind of like, well, I mean, what could it be?
Right.
And she's like, they had an assembly there. And they pulled all the students up, 14 and up, and they said, hey, this is 2020, right? I said, hey, kids, we're willing to give you a COVID shot. And don't worry, we won't even tell your parents about it if you don't want.
Wait, seriously?
I don't remember hearing this story.
Yeah,
really?
I talked about it nonstop, as you might imagine, because
wow,
autism, definitely vaccines, a hot topic. It's something that's just kind of near and dear to my heart, and especially the COVID thing kind of exacerbated that feeling. So a few weeks later, I ran into Dorothy Moon at an event. In Boise, and I'd never met her before. I saw her Facebook profile, seemed like good enough and all that, right? But that's not all I really knew at the time. I said, "Hey, can I just ask you a question?" It's like, here's a scenario. What happened? Like, like what can we do about it? Like, I don't know. Did I need to call a lawyer? Or did I need to go out and have a hunger strike? I wasn't really sure how to handle
burn the school down. Like that's within the realm of possibility at this point.
She's like, unfortunately, the way Idaho law is written, it's probably technically legal. And I just kind of, again, didn't know what to say, but, we talked a little bit and just chatted. She said, oh, Horseshoe Bend, blah, blah, blah. She's like, obviously in their district, she was interested. Well,
Yeah.
like the next week, basically, she announced she was going to run for state or Secretary of State and running that race. And she called me at work and said, hey, I need you to run for my seat. And I'm just like, I was so mad and so upset. I probably wasn't thinking straight. So maybe that's the answer to your question. But I knew, and so I talked to work. You guys, owners at work, said, if I do this, what do you think? They were actually very encouraging of it. Said they'd be willing to donate and help out in different ways, in terms of just let me take calls and and help facilitate whatever. And so that was kind of the what took me over the edge. Obviously, watching the COVID stuff and
Yeah.
The shutdowns, and you've got this woman at the park in Meridian getting arrested for taking her children to a playground. All that stuff. I think most of us probably here already know the stuff in Moscow. All that kind of stuff going on. You thought, we can move to Idaho to be a free state. Obviously not as bad as California. There's not the lockdowns in Australia where my brother lives. That kind of stuff. It's not I guess that crazy, but still kind of disappointed that of what happened there. But the issue really there with if we can do schools trying to give vaccines to children, behind their parents' backs, no less, there's just like things are really off the rails. And so
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm very curious. This is a great story, and it's my favorite story because this is the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington story, which is, hey, like, I'm a regular citizen. And you're not, because you've been in politics, but it's also like you're a family man. Like, you want to live your life, you want to be with your family. I gotta stop hitting my mic. Sorry about that. But it's like, hey, you see change and you want to make change. Why in this race too? Like, you have two very bad representatives. Your senator is being taken care of by an all-star who's coming back. And Christy Zitto, we did our first show with her. Why Matt Bundy and why not Megan Blanksma?
Well, the way it kind of worked last time, there was redistricting was going on last time when I filed. So originally, I almost thought I was taking an open seat from Dorothy, right? There was Terry Gestrin, we had Dorothy, and then Thane, I guess, was the senator, but the redistricting was up in the air. This is like November, December is when I'm kind of getting into this, right? You don't actually technically file even until like March. So which actual seat I was going for, but basically I was going to go in replacing Dorothy Moon in one of her seats. So I thought maybe I'd run even against Terry Gestrin, if depending on how that all shook out. We'll end up that Gem County got kicked out of District 8 and he got replaced with Elmore County, which then put Bundy, Blanksma, and then I thought I had Christy Zitto as my senator, but then she decided to take a leave of absence, and so a lot of movement was happening there.
Whose fault was that? Anyone come to mind?
Nobody in this room, that's for dang sure.
I'm pretty sure I'm innocent of that one, at least. Now, so then it kind of came down to, well, there was in the Senate, even if I was to consider that, there was Terry Gestrin running, there was John Kruger running, there was Gary Freeman, all these people came out of the woodwork for the Senate seat. I'm like, well, didn't really seem like for me to pile on and be a fifth candidate over there made a whole lot of sense, I guess. And again, I was running to replace Dorothy in spirit. And so I had a choice between Blanksma and Bundy, and I just, Bundy's voting record even 2 years ago was considerably worse than Blanksma's was. And just the one that finally set me over the edge, though, was he voted for, there's a bill, I think, right at the filing time, there's a bill that would have taken Idaho out of being an emergency state anymore. And he voted even against that.
Right.
Here it is 2 years later, obviously it's just a total different kind of worldview here. He's thinking 2 years later, we still need to keep Idaho in a state of emergency over COVID. Not for a drought or forest fires or something. I don't know, but COVID, we're still going to be an emergency at this point. This guy really doesn't get it. He's bad votes on vaccine mandates. He's bad votes on grocery taxes. He's got bad spending modes and this and that. But that really kind of just told me this guy is the the worst of the two. And so that was, I guess, the final straw. I was probably going to do it anyway, but kind of the final straw in the back there.
So what, Rob, and I've asked some of the other candidates that have come on this question. So you came from another state. You thought you were coming to a great conservative state, which I think the people are, but the politicians aren't necessarily. you get in the Capitol, and it's different, right? Dustin can attest to this. What goes on there? It's so swampy. It's worse than Washington D.C. in a lot of ways. How do you keep yourself from getting sucked into that? Because I can look at some people that their very first year on the Idaho Freedom Index, a lot of them may do really well, right? And then all of a sudden, you just see that score start to go this way and this way, right? And it drops and it drops. And I mean, take somebody, and I haven't even said this publicly yet, but take somebody like Senator Trakel, right? Who won and took out Greg Cheney, which we were all very happy about. Senator Trakel got a 75 his first year. And I'm kind of like,
yeah,
okay, I'm a little concerned already. And he was touting himself as,
right,
what you're basically saying. So how do you keep yourself from getting into that boat where the money, the power, the prestige, all of that crap, it isn't so tempting that you're like, yeah, I'll compromise here, I'll compromise there, and be good with it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that's, Matt Bundy, I think, went through that. He campaigned. I mean, you can ask the folks in Elmore County. He promised them he would be like Christy Zitto. He said, I would be the conservative, kind of like her, give or take a little bit, I guess, right? Well, he's now, I mean, I would argue he's the most Democrat Republican in the entire state legislature, know, and I mean, even calling him a rhino is almost,
I don't know. Schroeder, I think Schroeder probably hasn't beat.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
but that's the interesting thing about that district is, I mean, Blanksma is one thing. Like, she can kind of skate by, but like the other two are like, I don't want to say they're communist, but they're not communist either. Like, they're really bad. And like that district, I know Valley County is a little bit more liberal because of McCall, but that district is, I don't know how you go from Dorothy Moon to a communist in one election. Like, I don't know how that happens. That's a very conservative district.
Yeah, I mean, well, and again, the area Dorothy represented is probably, which is Custer Valley and Boise counties, is probably 40% of the votes, and Elmore County is about 60%. I mean, so I ran, in 2022, right? And this is really talking about the Republican primary. So even McCall's, liberal, it's, not, hugely relevant in the primary, but in that sense. But, where's it going? But yeah, you had this, Dorothy Moon is 40% of the votes in there. So Bundy, though, I mean, if you look at the whole election there, basically he won just in Mountain Home. I mean, I won Boise County, I won Custer County. It was pretty tight in Valley County. I think the crossover votes up in McCall is probably what cost me, the edge there. But if you even look in Elmore County, I mean, if you look at Glens Ferry and those outlying towns, I basically tied him. I mean, I lost a little bit, but not by much. And I mean, going against the guy who'd been there on the city council and Mountain Home, a guy who'd been living down there for 20 years or more, or something like that. I don't know exactly how long he's been there, but I mean, really in those outlying areas, I was breaking even with him. Really, it came down to Mountain Home, and he's a high school civics teacher and a retired, Air Force, bomber pilot. Those are noble professions, and that's the thing, that he'll only talk about his biography. He will not talk about his voting record at all. I mean, when we started, hitting him on gas tax, votes, in the campaign, he got there. Well, the grocery sales tax. The grocery sales tax, it's a great issue. Well, I mean,
exactly.
Did we get rid of it or not?
Did he ever call himself a common sense conservative? Did he ever do that? I bet he did.
Well, he definitely campaigned as a proven conservative. I mean,
sorry, I shouldn't say that, but like that's BS, complete BS.
I can't think. So I guess Rob, I want to get back though. I want to get back to my question, because I think we got sidetracked a little bit because we were talking about how awful Bundy is. But how do you prevent yourself from being that, right? So,
sorry.
I mean, the bar is really low, so I guess it doesn't take much, but
well, yeah, nowhere to go but up at this point, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an issue we wrestle with, running the Indiana Right to Work. People get in there, you try to get people to commit to saying, hey, if you get elected, will you support Right to Work? We'd like to know before you get there, right? And that's part of the thing, is you need some people who are just kind of grounded and who will make friends with the right people up there, who'll be a little more independent minded. They're not always looking toward the next election, things like that. I think a lot of the stuff I learned was, Indiana here, for example, in Right to Work, it was a big fight. Like with the first vote we had 49 Republicans in the House, only 31 voted for Right to Work. We had 40% of the caucus was terrified of the issue, and that was just a horrible person, practically, personally, politically, all that stuff, or even bringing this issue up because I was, causing them pain by people expressing opinions on right to work for and against it. So, I always had to hold the line there and be like, look, this is the right thing. It's good public policy. It's good for the state. Even though there's some loud people here yelling at you, you still need to do the right thing, or you're going to hear from your constituents on stuff like that. So
Sure.
Definitely learned, I ran a race against the Senate pro tem, recruited a guy named Greg Walker out there who defeated this. Bob Gardner had been elected in 1970, who then was pro tem in 1980. And now we're fighting a primary in 2006. I mean, he had been the Senate pro tem as long as I had been alive, and we made some issues of his right to work, and he killed a pro-life bill, and there was some lifetime health insurance stuff he got bad on, and all of a sudden he got kicked out of office. So I was used to confronting, quite frankly, the bad Republicans in there. Yeah. But you just just gotta have your convictions kind of ahead of you ahead of time. Are you going there just to join a club and go along to get along, or are you there to accomplish certain things and just know that you're going to go there with that, and that you're not giving in on, and you have to make up your mind. You're not giving up on this no matter what. Like, this is what you're here for. This is what you're fighting for. I guess maybe people compromise on some things, I guess, or maybe the speed at which things happen. But yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. Definitely you get pulled inside there because now you got your friends who you're working with in legislature. Well, I can't believe you're going to make me vote on this. What are you doing to me? I got 20 people call me last night. Now my district's on fire because of you. Thanks a lot.
Right.
That kind of stuff. So you get pressure all around, and you got to surround yourself with the right people, and just kind of make up your mind ahead of time that you are going to hang tough and you're going to fight for what's right. And if that costs you the next election, then so be it.
Okay.
I'm curious, and if I'm not looking for proprietary, secret, strategic information here or anything, but you lost the last election. You worked your butt off, from what I understand from people in your district. They told me that you worked hard. What's different this time? What's different? How are you going to change the game? Because this is a really important election. In the House, I would probably put this number 2 of people that we need to defeat as conservatives, because Julie Yamamoto is one, because she holds a gavel and she's awful. He's next. So how are you going to win this one?
Well, a lot of things have changed. I could probably spend a lot of time on it. First of all, there is the vote, you said, for House Bill 71 this year to allow minors. That means potentially a 14-year-old girl to have her breasts cut off. That there was every Republican in the House said, yes, we shouldn't allow that to happen in Idaho. And Matt Bundy voted no. He said, that's okay. I'm going to allow that to happen. Now, and he come out and at first when I saw the vote, I was kind of shocked, quite frankly, that even he would do that, even if he believed that was the right position. I thought politically he would be, smart enough on it, but he defended it. He said, this is a parental rights issue that he came out with. And then he started saying, well, this bill has to do with counseling services. And I literally had about 8 people read the bill. Some people were in politics, some who weren't. So can someone find in here where it says counseling services at all? Because I've literally read the bill like 8 times myself. I can't find it. So he's defended that position here. I know he's gotten hammered over in Idaho City. I know people, all around the district are livid over this vote. It's really, I think, for a lot of people, it's going to break their backs.
Breaking point.
What kind of guy he is. You really can't campaign as a proven conservative and come out and be in favor of, sex change, mutilation, surgeries, and drugs for, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. I don't think in a Republican primary, no less. We're not in Berkeley here or San Francisco. And even, I think somebody was telling me there was a poll done of Idaho Democrats. Even half the Idaho Democrats, the population is not in favor of this. So there's that vote. There's the vote there's the library porn bill, the pornographic materials making their way through libraries. It was a bad vote, against on that as well. So there's some big time votes came in there. There's, of course, you go back to the vaccine, there was a COVID vaccine bill that would have given the employees the right not to be fired over a COVID shot for 1 year, just 1 year. And, he voted against that as well. So that's some of the issues I think that'll be big here. He's going to have to really, work his way through. And I think that's really going to be hard for him, especially Mountain Home, where he's probably some more conservative friends are really going to be shocked, I think, to learn about his voting record and that, he actually is standing behind these votes and not apologizing for them. Beyond that, there's just been, these central committees in each of the counties has definitely changed gear, almost in all of them, except for maybe Custer County it's probably the same, which is good. That's where you want it. But Valley County, Boise, and Elmore County have really strong central committees. They're very active. They're growing. They're very vocal. All their members are ready to defeat Matt Bundy. I mean, Matt Bundy was censured by all 4 central committees, which they hadn't really been done that except for Elmore County. But they censured him, and all the votes were unanimous. There really was almost no thought of going against that there. In terms of the campaign, I mean, I think a lot of people were, some of my friends, even my family, were even surprised I got. So we're like, wow, we had no idea you're going to get so close here. We just kind of thought you were going for it here, and you walk away with 47% of the vote, so really just a 6-point race.
How many votes was that? Do you know? Do you remember?
Roughly 600 votes. Yeah, there was, I think 4,700 to 4,100, give or take a bit. Not too bad, I don't think. So to me, I think, it was a good showing, and despite the fact, of course, I was outspent. He had packs, pouring in direct mailers and text messages and internet ads and so forth. He definitely has some support there. But I think I've caught the attention of, different organizations in here, different, people in town. I mean, I've been getting calls this March, like, you're going to run again, right? And I was like, well, let's see how things go. But as his voting record kept coming out, like, please, we need somebody to do it. And so eventually, after letting the session kind of come and go, and then talking to my wife and praying about it, and just kind of taking a little bit of time, we decided to go ahead and do it again. And this time, so I'm more well known now, having run last time versus I really kind of came out of nowhere. I'd lived in the district a very short time by the time that primary had happened. Almost a very short time versus now I got some extra time, some exposure, and I think people are definitely going to be looking at unseat him.
No, and he's been around forever, like city councilman and all that. I mean, everybody knows who he is, and so if he came that close, then
So we've talked about how terrible Matt Bundy is, and we could spend all a podcast on that because his freedom index score is terrible, his spending index score is terrible. My sense is he's a system Republican because he works for the government. He gets his pension from the government, and yes, he deserves it because of his service in the Air Force. Thank you for that. But that doesn't make you a good Republican in any way, shape, or form. But he's a public school teacher. He's part of the system. My guess is he's friends with the union rep in his school and all that stuff. So he's terrible. We get that. Are you great? Because I want to know what you get elected. What are you going to do? What's your priority list? How can you help the House be more conservative? Because it definitely took a step back when people retired, redistricting got a few of our buddies out. The special interests spent like crazy to unseat like Chad Christensen, Ron Nate. We need more conservative fighters back in the House. Can you be that guy, and how?
I feel like the campaign should just be, I'm not Matt Bundy, right? There was a famous Senate race in New Jersey, and the Republican goes, I am not Bob Torricelli. And
is that the truck driver? The truck driver one?
No, this is before. I was probably in college or just out of college at this point. And this Torricelli had been senator from New Jersey, and he had been all this corruption come out. And I mean, not too dissimilar from what's coming out about the White House right now, but But the media had even turned on him at that point. So Republican literally just campaigned in every sentence, every question for anything, whether it's, it was always, I am not Bob Torricelli. And so I might just start going around saying I'm not Matt Bundy, but that would be fun to do that. But no, I mean, more seriously, I mean, obviously I would vote, in favor of more freedom, of Second Amendment rights on when it comes to vaccine mandates. I'd want to get that done, and secured for people. I don't think anyone should be fired from a job because they don't want to take a COVID shot. I mean, no one's medical history should be up for grabs for an employer to tell you got to start doing things like that. Those are private things, or normally like, we operate our autism business. Like you have all these HIPAA regulations. You can't talk about anybody's stuff, private stuff like that, or you're going to be in all kinds of fines. We'd be very careful on that. We never got hit with it because we were so careful. And now that we can just because we got some virus floating around, now all bets are off, and we can, any employer can make you do, take whatever, theoretically. So stuff like that would help with, I'm good friends, with I was Dorothy Moon's substitute state rep for 3 days down there. So I could go down there, have some votes and do it. And I would plan on being in the Freedom Caucus. I think I'd be, conservative across the board. I mean, Dorothy Moon, I think alike, public policy wise, and a lot of other things too. But so I think I'd be in that mold, from the voting records I look at for her or Heather Scott. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some separation somewhere on something, or maybe just tactically. But I think that's kind of the mold I see myself in. So I think it'd have a good freedom score and all that.
So you mentioned something that, basically every candidate in Idaho, including all the Democrats, talk about, which is the Second Amendment. So, I got to do it, Dustin. I got to do it.
You do. You got to stay true, buddy. True. Speak
Do I need
your
to go
truth.
wash my hair?
Speak my truth. So, the Second Amendment, obviously, like almost any issue, means a lot of different things to different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
David Hogg, one of the most famous, gun grabbing kids, Gen Z people out there, he says he's pro Second Amendment. You say you're pro Second Amendment, right? So,
Sure.
What does the Second Amendment mean to you, and what about an issue like red flag laws, for instance? Which, by the way, thanks a lot, Indiana, for leading the country on passing those.
See, you thought Indiana was perfect, and see, we did.
No, I never thought that.
Well, I mean, so in Indiana, we did, a lot of people got elected there. We had lifetime concealed carry. That was probably done in like 05 or 06. That was at the time was a significant victory. That really didn't have a lot of that out there. Eventually, they got constitutional carry. There was the same kind of fight Right to Work had in terms of getting that through there. But yeah, I mean, I definitely support constitutional carry laws. I'm opposed to red flag laws. I don't like this seems like a pretext to. Well, what if we have a climate emergency? Now all of a sudden we need to get rid of people's guns, right? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
I think COVID really taught us to be really careful about that. And no, I'm definitely disturbed by the idea that a city government can lease out its property, and all of a sudden, that leasing company can now decide what to do, with government property with people carrying guns. I carry quite a bit to work. I mean, and selling gold and silver. We have it there. We ship it out. I mean, quite frankly, if someone wanted to try and go after somebody in the parking lot, I think I'm a target for that, and our staff is.
Yeah.
So, so I am a carrier, quite a bit, and so I mean, sometimes the devil's in the details, but I think
Sure.
yeah, I would envision myself being a pretty firm supporter on that.
Okay.
And I think, quite frankly, I'd anger all my friends, in Boise County if I wasn't good on it. So, yeah, I mean, it's Boise County. It's a great place to be, and so I don't know if you have anything more specific than that, but you're right. Everyone campaigns as pro Second Amendment. But.
Hey, well, you've been paying enough attention to know about the Idaho Supreme Court's screwing of gun owners in Idaho, so I'm impressed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she says it was a friend of mine, so I do.
There you go.
Now that we've got Greg's pet peeve out of the way, okay, like, come on.
It's an important pet
No,
peeve.
it really is. It really is. I appreciate it. And like, I'm not a gun nut. Like, I like guns. So I appreciate that Greg can kind of compliment me there. And because I don't know all the gun things he does. I like that. One of the major things is tax policy. Idaho has done a good job of lowering income tax rates over the last few years. Although I would argue that with all the federal money, all the surpluses, everything that's flowed into our state, we could be in a position without one.
Maybe.
But at the same time, property taxes are going bananas across the state, pricing out a lot of people from home ownership, and people who already own their homes are having to make some serious sacrifices to afford their homes that are already paid off because they still have to pay rent to the government. Then we also have a sales tax issue, which is 6%, which is fine, whatever. Where are you at on tax policy? Do you like our system? Do you want to change it? What would you change about it? Tell me what you're thinking on taxes.
I personally, I never thought I'd be talking about sex change surgeries, for children here. I thought it'd be, right to work, taxes, that kind of stuff is kind of more right, what I assumed I'd be talking about, things like that. I definitely want them lower. The grocery tax is not to me, it makes a lot of sense, particularly in an inflationary environment like we have. We've got stubborn inflation at 9% at one point. We're still 4 or 5%, depending which numbers you look at and how they manipulate. You have core inflation or this inflation or right. We talk about iPads or your food bill or to me, getting rid of the grocery sales tax is just kind of like an automatic at this point. It's not a huge mover, but for people who are budgeting and people who have limited incomes, who don't have a lot of income mobility, people who are on fixed incomes because of disability or retirements, stuff like that, I think the grocery sales tax is rather cruel. Quite frankly, almost very few states have a grocery sales tax at all. And I just think that's an easy place to start with. I do like getting rid of the income tax. I think that's that is encouraging people to work and such like that. So I think keep grinding that down is good. But you're right. The sales tax is probably the one that's probably the most okay. It does feel like Idaho's taxes are a little higher than they should be. So but yeah, I'd probably, you get, I don't know if we could just how exactly this is in Idaho, but like in Indiana, like, you had a cap of, both your residential property, then your like your farm property and rental properties, and then you had your commercial properties had certain like 1%, 2%, and 3% you could cap its value at. Now some of that fell on you had to get a hold of your county governments to make sure they weren't spending too much, because they get the cap in place, but
Same thing here.
So it's not. I'm guessing it's not only property taxes aren't only a legislature kind of problem; they're also going to be a county problem. Like we're actually our property taxes in Horseshoe Bend actually went down because you've had more people move in. There's a bigger tax base, and the budget hasn't been raised here. So actually, the county so far has been behaving responsibly, but that's because you have responsible county council members here.
We can talk. I mean, obviously, you're good on education choice. I think. Actually, let's go to education choice. One of the big bills, and this is the most infuriating thing to me, and I understand why they did it, but there was you can call it a voucher bill. I don't like that word because it's been poll tested by the Democrats as the negative word or whatever, but a tax credit bill or basically a money follows the kid bill. The homeschool community, a lot of the homeschoolers fought it because they didn't want, they say with the shekels come the shackles or whatever. It's like, well, you're also keeping kids trapped in government schools. So maybe just don't participate. Anyway, that's another diatribe for another day. Yeah. Where are you at on school choice? If you could implement your policy tomorrow, what would it be?
Whew, man. Yeah, I like choice. I mean, I went to private school growing up, as a kid. My parents taught in that school, a homeschool parent, going then. So definitely would like to give parents options. There's definitely what they call education savings accounts. I guess that's kind of the way they're talking about it, a lot of it right now. I would like to help people get to have some options for it. As a charter school, I don't know exactly how the bill would work, but one thing I know as a homeschooling family, the homeschooling family definitely don't want is something targeted to homeschoolers, where now there's a homeschool list of people, and we're going to start going after their curriculums, and I think that's a big fear, on that side of it. But I think that could be dealt with, as well. But yeah, I definitely want to give people options. Yeah, I do think that parents should be dictating the curriculum, or ultimately being responsible for. They should ultimately be in charge of the school. That the school should be responsive to what the parents want, for their kids' education, whether that's public school or certainly private school. You have that automatically because, well, if everyone leaves, then you're not gonna have a school there anymore. It's a little harder for that with public schools, but so if you just give people some options, go into different schools, locally, switch around to different schools like that. So I would want to give as many choices as I could. It would be I'd be definitely in favor of that.
Good.
And my treasurer, is a charter school. He helps fund charter schools and helps them get up and running and that kind of stuff. So that's definitely near and dear to my heart. So.
What are your thoughts on funding? Because this is the topic that comes up every year, and Brad Little talks about how much of our tax money is going to take and quote unquote invest it into education, and we just keep dumping more and more and more money into it. What is the problem or problems, or what are the major problems that you see with the education system? Because we could probably put $5 trillion into it, and it's going to be the same. We're going to get the same test results. We're going to have the same problems. You can pay the teachers. Every teacher $1 million a year. I don't think it's going to fix the problem. So what do you think is the problem right now with the biggest problems with our education system?
Well, we could probably spend the next hour kind of going over that. I mean, obviously, we've elected not to put my
rapid fire.
Yeah, you got unions involved in so many levels of education, and they're more about protecting the staff and their union dues more than they are educating kids. You've got schools, and I'm just sort of talking broad strokes here. You got schools trying to talk about critical race theories and things like that, and not teaching just core math, history, science. Kind of your basic stuff, and now we got Common Core curriculum still, out there. There's a lot of distractions from it, quite frankly. And yeah, you can, like you said, you can write a check you could have a blank check for a school district, say, here, go make it happen, and that's by itself not going to solve it. I mean, in business wise, typically, when you get good performance, then you get paid extra. And, I know it's tricky with schools, but, generally you don't go to my boss and say, well, if you give me a 20% raise, I'll start working a little better for you. You just, I mean, I guess I could try it tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. But
maybe I'll try that with my boss tomorrow.
Throwing money at the system is not necessarily going to help. I mean, you can never pay teachers enough. It's kind of like being a police officer. What are they really worth to you? It's almost uncalculable in some ways, but but they're rewarded in different ways too. So I just would say that throwing money is not the solution. Overall, we got to get back to basics teaching. I think some competition would be helpful. I think for some kids, different schools are going to work. I mean, heck, you can talk about like nutrition in a classroom. And a lot of the kids we worked with back in Indiana, when their diet stunk, the kids misbehaved.
Yeah.
That's a component. And we have lots of junk food, floating around there. I mean, every time my kids go anywhere, people are throwing them lollipops. Drives me crazy, quite frankly.
Are you trying to Michelle Obama Idaho schools? Is that what you're saying?
I'll get Pepsi to underwrite the campaign, and then we'll.
Oh no!
Isn't how that one worked out? But
yeah.
Amazing.
That's funny. Hey, Dustin, you got anything else?
Yeah. I'm sorry. We got a plan to wrap up. We got about 5 minutes left. We don't want to keep everybody. I know you said you're not a night guy, and I want to be respectful of your time. This is my most important question. I am tired of supporting conservatives who fake like they're conservative, and then they either were liars or they wilt under pressure. So my favorite question is this one, which is, let's say you are elected to the House, you have your bill, a pet bill of yours to, I don't know, reduce the income tax or get school choice through, and it's like, okay, we can get this through. It gets through committee, it gets to the floor, and Mike Moyle comes up to you and says, Rob, I'm going to cut you a deal. And he's wearing his cowboy boots and he's playing the good old boy act, right? And he says, we're going to get your bill through, but you have to vote for this other bill, which is a piece of crap. But I want it. I want to serve my interests. Will you trade your vote? That's what I want to know. Is Rob Beiswenger somebody who will trade his vote to get what he wants?
That's an interesting question. I've seen it work both ways. I know, Ron Paul traded votes. I won't say it's, what are you really trading for? What do you, all that kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
I know you gotta be careful though, because I think what you're getting to is a slippery slope. You start doing this and that, and all of a sudden you trade away all the reasons you're there, for it. So yeah, that's dangerous. I wouldn't say I would never do that. It depends on what am I getting versus what I'm giving up, I guess, things like that. I mean, for the most part, I don't envision myself as a big deal cutter, I guess, but that's not really the way I worked with, Right to Work. I mean, they're trying to cut deals with me all the time. They're, what can we do Right to Work just for these people? Well, can we exempt construction workers? And I'm like, well, no, everyone deserves it. Why are we exempting construction workers? They're, and this is Republicans asking me to do this. They beg me to get off their back and do things like that. So quite familiar with that game. But you generally you want to vote for good bills and vote against bad bills.
Okay. Awesome. Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do it?
Well, you've done us a huge favor by coming on the podcast, talking about your stuff, your issues or whatever. We want to do you a favor. Tell people where they can learn more about you, learn campaign website, donate it, whatever. Make the pitch.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Rob Beiswenger for House District 8, and out of Horseshoe Bend. My website is Idaho, and the number 4, and Rob, R-O-B, like to rob the bank, idahoforrob.com. And then you can see there's kind of a little bit of bio stuff, some of that stuff you heard here tonight. You can donate there. There's $1,000, per person or per corporation, limit. If you want to do that, that'd be very helpful. Obviously, I've got to expose his voting record. I think that's really, the gist of my campaign. I go out there and talk about myself. I think a lot of people know who I am, but also you got to go out there and just point out his bad votes. But you got to do it more than once, and you got to make your repetition, all that. So, would appreciate the help. I think it'd be a big upgrade for the seat. Matt Bundy's got a series of bad votes. I just don't think this is not we're in a sort of a dangerous time. We got censorship out the wazoo. You got tech billionaires ramming their throats down there. All kinds of left-wing ideas that are in, all over the country, all over the world, trying to be forced on us. They're, you saw in Canada, they were they'd stopped the bank accounts for these truckers out there who were protesting. There's all kinds of bad stuff going out there. And I definitely don't think Matt Bundy is a guy he's proven himself not to be a conservative, he's really proven himself to be quite the opposite. And the only thing you can count them on is not to be there on the important votes. So I don't know what the next important vote is going to happen next year or 2 years or 3 years down the road. That's part of why I think I feel like I need to get in here and do this. He's going to let us down. I mean, to me, I've already written it off. So
Yeah.
Hopefully get out there and replace him and get some different things going. And quite frankly, District 8 deserves, better representation.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we appreciate, like Dustin said, we appreciate you coming on, taking the time. Go hit the hay and
thanks.
Spend time with your family. So we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Appreciate it.
All right. That is Rob Beiswenger. He is taking on the Matt Bundy. Oh, Bundy. I actually thought, like, before I really knew Matt Bundy, I thought his last name would actually hurt him, given everything that was happening with Ammon Bundy at the time. I'm like, man, maybe people, but he was so well known in the community. Everybody knew that there was no relation either in political philosophy or actual familiar. To be fair, I actually don't know if they're related. There's probably a connection somewhere along the tree, but it's probably distant.
It's an unusual name, and if you're in the West with an unusual name, there's probably a connection there somewhere.
Right, yeah. All right, what else do we want to get to?
So, just one thing. We were going to talk about Boise race. Let's save that for next week because I'm tired.
Yeah.
I was on a plane all day. But I want to raise a point for those who might be listening and who have the means. If you can donate to candidates, even if it's $5 or $10, dude, throw them a bone. Because I'll tell you, I was thinking about this during Rob's interview with us. There is so much money. I was thinking about. I'm going to go look at Matt Bundy's donor list, and I did this a couple of years ago with somebody. I think it was like, who is the guy out of Lador? Beeler. Merrill Beeler.
Yeah.
He had like 40 donations, and they had one from his district. It was $50. Every other donation was from a PAC or association or business in Boise, right? Yeah. So he's not really representing his district. A lot of these conservatives, there are not a lot of big conservative funders in the state of Idaho. No, I can think of about 5 that they are reliable, that have the means to max out for candidates. $5, $10, $50, $100. If you can do that, it adds up and it means the world to these candidates. $100 can buy you 1,000 impressions or more if you're good on Facebook. It can buy you, 1,000 mailer. Well, maybe not 2,000 mailers, probably. Donate if you can. They don't have the money. They don't have all the corporations are woke. They like to support the incumbents. It's their thing. Please donate to conservative candidates. Please. I'm begging you. They need all the help they can get.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're so overmatched. They not only do they have these other, the establishment folks have all the big, huge PACs. They've got the big businesses. They've got all the establishment candidates who are also giving them money. They've got all that, and they've got the media. Right. The media here loves to attack real conservatives. They do it all the time, nonstop, over the stupidest things you can imagine that aren't news stories. And they'll turn it into a, quote unquote news story. And so, any help. And if you can't afford to donate money, donate some time, go knock doors, hand out stuff, work at a fair booth for them or whatever they're doing, and just offer to volunteer to help out their campaign for sure.
Yeah. It, my sense is, and each one gets worse, right? My sense is that 2024 is going to be a brawl because I think Idaho Freedom PAC and Citizens Alliance and all the other outside groups on the right did a really good job surprising with the attack on the Senate and flipping 11 Senate seats last time. It was crazy. They're not going to let that happen again, and they're going to. I know there were lobbyists who were pissed that we took. Agenbrod and Woodward and Patrick, they said, one lobbyist said, those were our reliable Senate votes. Like, I didn't have to work for those guys. It's like, okay, first of all, there's a problem there. Second of all, like, they want those guys back, or they want their shills, their water boys, their errand boys back. And they're going to spend like hell to get them back. So, guys, there's a brawl coming, and $5 now. Put it on auto pay so you're doing it monthly or weekly or whatever you can afford. Guys, I'm telling you, this is one of the most important things you can do. I'm donating. I'm volunteering for a pack again. It matters. It matters so much.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well,
anyway.
and on top of that, be sure to follow the Freedom Bros. We love having you guys here. We're going to be bringing you a lot more content, hopefully a lot more interviews with candidates and other elected officials, kind of giving you guys an inside peek at inside baseball, Idaho politics. So we're having a lot of fun, but we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, be sure if you're on Rumble, get over to Rumble, subscribe to our channel there, where we know we can have all this content regardless of. We talked about the transgender issue. I don't even know if we're even on YouTube anymore. Like, that's one issue where a lot of like really famous people are getting booted. So anyway, be sure to get over on Rumble and support our channel there. So anyway, you got anything else, Dustin?
Yeah, last thing, we have made a Discord server. I'll share the link in the comments. It's going right now, but basically what I did with that is I built a place where you can collaborate and chat with other conservatives and conservatives in your district. So if you want to talk to people only in District 8, you answer the question, you jump in that channel, you can collaborate, and it's coming now. It's going to take some time to build that up, but I think it's a really cool project, and I think we can make a lot of headway there. Other than that, dude, I'm gonna go get some sleep so I can enjoy NF tomorrow, dude. We're gonna get that in and out, and we're going to NF. Let's go, man.
I have to do like a short Freedom Bros live from NF or something. I don't know.
I don't know if any of our fans would appreciate that type of music, but maybe we'll do something just for funsies. We'll see.
Maybe from In and Out. Yeah, we'll see. All right, well, we'll roll the stinger, and we will see you guys next week. Take care and God bless.
Let's go.